right, everybody. I want to talk about a little bit here about invasive species in Florida. We got a lot of problems with foreign species invading our state, and I don't mean just pythons and some other snakes and wild animals that are being brought in from overseas, or things that might come in via shipments and whatnot from South America, etc., etc. And I'm not exactly talking about plants like kudzu or other things like that. What I'm referring to here are the invasive species of people that are invading our state from and the people are these left-wing woke nutcases from New York, California, and places such as that think they know everything. I mean, they're so absolutely right about everything that after destroying their own state, city, and county, they decide to move into our state and then tell us what's best for our state. So I'd like you all, I guess Floridians or people that have lived here for a while, to consider, especially the ones that are running for public office, some of them, that they're about as woke and about as left-wing nutcases as they come. We have a lot of them here in Central Florida, mind you, and a couple of other counties. As you know, especially when it comes to state's attorneys here in the state, we've had, thank God, that we got a law-abiding governor that is not afraid to crack down and suspend or even remove some of these anti-law state's attorneys that are propped up by special interest in Soros, etc. So we're talking specifically about Pinellas County there. That as you know, the deal with this idiot. Okay, hold on a second. We got a semi here going on your right there. Okay. So anyhow, the state attorney's been suspended. He made a public statement that he was not going to follow state law openly, defying state law. He's taken an oath. He swore to uphold our laws and our Constitution, and yet they open their mouth and they trash talk, and they feel compelled to violate it openly. So our governor, Ron DeSantis, didn't hold back. He immediately suspended the man and appointed somebody to replace him, and hopefully he'll get rid of him. And that's the way it should be. And elections are coming up, as you know, so one thing to be aware of is the fraudulent amount of commercials, the lies, the deceit, the just total disregard for honesty that takes place within, especially here in our state. Now we have an individual named Val Demings from Central Florida, who used to be a police chief. Believe it or not, this police chief, the sole police chief probably that I know, that left her service weapon unattended and unsecure in her car. Of course, so it got stolen and is jeopardizing the lives of countless people. Who knows how many people have been shot, killed, murdered, held up with Val Demings' weapon. Of course, she made a promise, this is 11, 12 years ago now, that she would do everything in her power, everything possible to find her weapon. And cricket is all you hear, because she's been running for public office ever since she left that position, attempting to run for Congress a couple of times, and then for mayor of Orlando, or mayor of Orange County rather, losing at that, and then waiting for her district to be gerrymandered to her advantage, at which time she was elected as the congresswoman, who unfortunately doesn't know how to tell the truth, for one thing, was responsible for a false accusation towards a president last year on an impeachment, a manufactured impeachment trial, and she was one of the main culprits, making false statements and accusations towards the president, unfounded, hearsay, none, well, basically a manufactured, rigged, I call it, how do you spell misinformation? And it's Demings. Yep, Demings. That's how you spell misinformation. Her husband, as you know, is the Orange County mayor. Don't know if he's up for re-election here, but of course, you know, they managed to cover the whole place in some way, shape, or form. I have no idea how these people collect so much money, but yeah, millionaires, it's an understatement here. We're talking about, you know, a couple here that is actually probably the worst of the worst that Central Florida can provide, and yet they're in power. And now she is making an attempt to run for Senate and manufacturing stories, and she is really has no shame concerning spreading misinformation and lying. She's already done it. I mean, holding an impeachment trial, being in charge of overseeing the trial against Donald Trump on trumped up charges, manufactured, unfounded, no proof. But yeah, she got a lot of camera time, a lot of CNN coverage, and now she's manufacturing stories about Marco Rubio in order to hopefully get a Senate seat. Let's hope that the residents of our state, the Floridians that are true natives, turn out and vote. Folks, the biggest problem that we have is election fraud. that is taking hold of our nation. These absentee ballots being sent to, by the millions we're talking, to unknown addresses. I get calls every week to telephone numbers I've owned for years, asking for people that are non-existent. This happened on the 2020 elections, by the way. I received hundreds of calls from the Democratic National Committee. Volunteers that were basically campaigning for Joe Biden. I recorded a few of them. And they were contacting people that were non-existent. And my telephone, which is associated to my house, which I've resided in since 1987, 86, 87, with the same telephone number too, mind you. And yet they're calling the telephone number asking for people that are non-existent about their absentee ballots. Now you explain how that happens a month and a half before the elections. So through September, October, and there at the beginning of November, I was receiving calls on a daily basis from the Democratic National Committee volunteers on the campaign for to elect Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. How did that happen? Unless somebody's ordering ballots, utilizing my personal information, my telephone number, my address, and then somehow or another getting a hold of these ballots and filling them out and dropping them off in boxes. This is exactly what the Democratic Party is good at. Really, now it's, last time they used the COVID as an excuse for people to relax voting laws and allow people to just literally drop off ballots, unchecked, unverified, and boxes that are unmanned. So unknown people voting multiple times, ordering multiple ballots under multiple names. Who knows how many people were voting? You could have 100,000 registered voters in a community and somehow 200,000 ballots were counted. How does that happen? Oh, but no, there was no fraud. Absolutely no fraud, folks. Geez, I don't know. I mean, and the thing about it is, you can tell this till you turn blue in the face. You can warn people and talk about it till you're blue in the face. But people just don't care. I mean, the brainwashing has been taking place for decades. I believe that wholeheartedly. Our government schools, aka public schools, both at the K through 12, colleges and university institutions, have done an excellent job brainwashing. We're talking about, indoctrinating the generations after the baby boomer generation. They're indoctrinated, folks. And I say, folks, tell your children to wake up. And if you're one of those that attended school and didn't question why they're telling you that all of a sudden Christopher Columbus did not discover the New World, and the context that he discovered the New World, then I don't know what's up with this. We do know that natives existed. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that they were not turned into slaves by Spaniards or European countries or the French, and used and killed and murdered, and diseases were spread. Nobody is saying that. But to deny it all of a sudden and start removing statues and start removing history from not just books, but from libraries, from buildings, from public institutions. It's madness, folks. This is what happens in communist countries. This is what happened in socialist countries. This is what happened in countries where you have dictatorships. And people are not blinking an eye. Anyway, we're going to open the lines, folks. You know how to do it, how to call. The number is posted. You know what it is, 321-837-9974. You can call or text, leave a message. And, I am just perplexed, My biggest thing is misinformation. What a one-sided thing this has become. Social media, the social media giants, the internet giants, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Twitters, censoring, opposing points of views. Congress censoring, opposing points of views. The government censoring, opposing points of views. Censoring doctors, censoring lawyers, attorneys, censoring professionals that disagree with other professionals, and then spreading misinformation with the help of what, again, they called yellow journalism is what we have here, folks. Fake news. The CNN, the ABCs, NBCs, CBS's of the world, MSNBCs. These outlets are nothing more than propaganda machines. Basically, this is like state media in Russia and in Cuba, Venezuela. Think about it. Turn on your public radio. Listen to public radio for one thing. You have no opposing views on that. Everything is one-sided. Talk about horrific misinformation that's taking place with this. I mean, when you tell people that climate is changing, duh. Climate is supposed to change. Who are these people? Do they think we're God? And we could somehow control climate? Since when? Since when? First it was global warming, then it was global this, now it's climate changing? Duh! They figure some way to control, folks. Look at the price of fuel, gas. Every bill that is passed in Congress and the Senate and signed by the President, talk about misleading. How do you have an inflation control act bill? How do you control inflation by printing another $750 billion, $700 and some billion This is how they control inflation? By printing more money? And handing out more dollar bills? Didn't take a rocket science for me to tell you, and I predicted it 2 years ago when they started handing out cash money for this pandemic thing. I call it a scandemic, okay? The scandemic. It's a scam. This is the biggest scam perpetrated on the American and the international, in the whole world, ever. They took the right of people to pray and worship. Preachers are incarcerated for praying at their home. And people weren't blinking an eye. I mean, you millennials, I don't know how many generations they got out there, but come on. Open a real history book, folks. I know they've been getting rid of a lot of stuff, but you can still dig. Just get rid of those pads and look up older history books on the library or something. There's still reference manuals out there that will show you how if we don't learn from the past, is bound to repeat itself. I'm afraid for my grandkids, for my kids, and great-great-grandkids, living in the nation, being so fortunate to have had so much for so long, and now seeing the decay of not just everyday things like the cost of food, transportation, the taxes, the fact that you can't even get interest in a bank, the fact that they're charging you service fees for everything at a bank where they hold your money. It's unheard of. I mean, grew up in a time where you were encouraged to save money and keep it in the bank. Who would want to trust the bank anyways today? They ruined the financial collapse of 2008, all banking related, but they all laugh and came out making money like bandits because they were bailed out. We got to bail them out, folks. Who's bailing you out? You think the Democratic Party is bailing you out right now? Printing $700 billion plus and calling it Inflation Reduction Act. It's laughable. 321-837-9974 is the number to dial, folks. We'd love to hear your opinions. You can text us or call us live, taped or delayed. Check us out on cybervideotv.com. We're also on lawtelevision.org, folks. You can find us. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on YouTube right now, as long as they let us. But they could yank us off at any time, because that's just the way that social media and these media, multimedia bullies work now today. You know. Talk about a misleading term. Another one. Planned Parenthood. Wow. Murder babies and call it planning parenting. How do you even have the audacity or how do you look yourself in the mirror and call it Planned Parenthood after your purpose is to murder babies? Unbelievable. So many misleading terminology being used, especially around these bills that Congress passes. But some of these nonprofit organizations, oh my goodness, Police Benevolent Association. What is that? You ever get a call from these people? Police Benevolent Association. What the heck is that supposed to be? It's a union, folks. That's all it is. They don't want to call it the police union. God forbid. Okay? But that's where the problem lies here, you know. They can lie straight to your face. Political action committees come out all the time now. These political action committees are created by the same candidates, folks, so they can divert monies which otherwise would not be allowed or tolerated to be donated by a single entity to your campaign. But if you have a political action committee, you can collect as much money as you want, blah, 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 and they can run all these commercials, as much lies and whatever they want, tax-free. Talk about nonsense, folks. Talk about nonsense. Yeah. Inflation Reduction Act. print $750 billion because the $4 trillion or 5 or whatever that's already been printed since COVID came around, which we can't pay. We can't pay back. That's why gasoline is so much. Not just because our president is not allowing them to continue the pipeline. Oh no, or pumping from our own well. We were independent. We were energy independent country. For the first time, we were exporting more than we were importing. But no, he had to put a stop to that. Yeah, he had to put a stop to that. We were controlling the borders. For the first time, we had control of the border. We were lowering the traffic, the drug trafficking and the human trafficking that was taking place at the border, because this criminal activity happens due to the fact that the Mexican cartel controls the border, and every person that crosses it illegally is now a member of the cartel, basically. They owe monies to the Mexican cartel. So the first thing they do once they cross the border illegally is they get on the public dough. They start collecting federal money, which they in turn send back to the Mexican cartel. They become prostitutes. They become drug dealers, drug runners. They become criminals because they have to pay back the cartel for as long as they want. Basically, it's slavery. It's a slave trade that's taking place by the millions now, folks, at the Mexican border, with the blessing of the Democratic National Committee. Biden's blessing, with Kamala Harris in charge. The czar of the southern border has not been there, has not seen it, staying as far away from the southern border as possible. Neither has Biden. We're talking about crisis now, mind you. The amount of crime that's taking place on some of these southern states and the border itself, it's out of this world. You think for a minute that the fake news talks about this? No. Do they talk about the slavery taking place, the human trafficking taking place at the southern border because of the illegal crossing and the Mexican cartel, the largest cartel, criminal enterprise in the world, which we are feeding. This is with the blessing of the Biden administration, folks. Happening right under your nose. The federal government giving money back to the cartel via the millions of illegal undocumented immigrants that are being they're being slaved and trafficked by the Mexican cartel across the border into the United States. And all you hear is crickets from the press, from the media, from the government, the federal government, from the Biden administration. Crickets. From the senators, the Democratic senators, the Democratic Congress people, avoiding the topic. People are dying in your neighborhood because of the fentanyl being trafficked. Addiction is at an all-time high in our nation. We're talking about people close to you. It's happening in my family. It's happening in our neighborhoods. And it's happening today, right in front of our faces. People are dying for real. A pastor who does work with they call it structurally challenged. Okay, it's what he rather call because they're human beings that have no home, have no place to call home. They live in camps. Okay, structurally challenged man passed away less than a mile from my house due to an overdose of fentanyl. They're putting this fentanyl on everything, folks. They're spiking every kind of drug you can imagine, and all it takes is a little tiny bit to kill you. Ask your local police. Ask your doctor. But yeah, the crisis is, what's the new crisis? Monkeypox. Jeez, yeah, let's divert the attention and talk about something else except what the real crisis is. The real crisis is the murder of babies for generations. It's been a genocide that's taken place within our nation. Okay? Supreme Court just made a decision to correct a sickening, bad decision that they made back in 1973. But the murders are still taking place. What do they call that again? The baby murder facilities, houses of death, aka Planned Parenthood. What does parenting have to do with that? What kind of parenting does murdering babies have to do with, let's face it, they've already done, they've been recorded, captured on hidden camera, talking about what they do, selling baby parts for profit. You think the mainstream media talks about that? Fake news? You think they talk about that? You think they talked about Gosnell, a doctor that had been murdering babies for, almost 4 decades before somebody finally came out, somebody who worked at one of these houses of murder that he ran in poverty-stricken, low-income areas specifically, where mainly black people are decimating. They've decimated their culture, their race, turning fathers away from their homes. Millions and millions of babies, African American babies, murdered over decades at a highly disproportionate rate. Unheard of. Latino babies the same way. This doesn't happen in the Asian community. Doesn't happen in the as much in the Caucasian community, but it does. And they've been indoctrinating children again. Houses of indoctrination is what they call it, and we want to be mindful, folks, that the best thing you can do for your children is find a school that will not indoctrinate your child, or homeschool them, folks. If you don't do that, you're doing such a disservice. That's the biggest concern you should have when you bring a child into this world. First, teach them that an abortion is murdering a baby. That's what they need to know. Until our nation stops murdering babies, why should they care about anybody else? Really, why would they care about you as an adult or as an elderly person? If they murder people, if they can murder an innocent, unable, helpless baby in the womb, what chance do you stand outside of the womb? So yeah, we need prayer. Churches, we need real pastors with real backbone. You watch out where you are worshiping, folks. You need to watch out who you are calling a reverend, who you are calling a bishop, who you are calling a leader or a man of the cloth or a man of God. Because the false preachers are just everywhere. Some of them actually promote abortion and murder, baby murder. How does that happen? How do you attend the church, okay, and look yourself in the face after going to one of these houses of murder? How do you do that? That's my biggest concern is when I heard the story about Gosnell, which a lot of people haven't, and there's a movie out there which took a long time to be made because, of course, they want to fight tooth and nail. There's another movie called Unplanned. You need to check these movies out, folks, because that's the alternate opinion. That's the opposite side. This is the truth and the reality that the fake news media, these media conglomerates, that these political organizations such as the DNC are avoiding and are neglecting to tell you. They have no shame. You need to look at these things and see what is happening. When you have a doctor that had been performing abortions for 3.5 decades plus, and even after he graduated and lived in one state, had been basically babies. They were, when you go get an abortion, they give you some pill that forces you to have a what do they call it? It's like inducing labor, right? So it opens up dilates your cervix, gets you ready.
Vehicle health report. Press OK to choose yes, or to be reminded later.
And so what happens is, by the time that they go in there to do this, and you need to actually watch a video of how they go through about murdering a baby and how the baby is fighting for its life till the very last second when they shove this tube inside the canal, the vaginal canal, to just chop off the arms little by little pieces, and the baby is fighting like crazy, and some of these babies come out living. And so Dr. Gosnell would take that baby aside to a room and then cut its spinal cord at its neck off and murder it after it was born alive. And that's why he was found guilty. I think they found, I don't remember how many cases because it didn't cover this. They were expecting a lot of media to show up. Guess what? There's pictures. It took me a while to just find any information because I heard it on a radio, a little story about it in Pennsylvania when they were hearing the case. I'd have to say this is about 8 years ago or so. And I was appalled. I was just out of my mind. I thought to myself, this is like the biggest news ever. Going to have to be the biggest news. And I was going out of the area into no reception, no cell phone, no television, no radio, out in the woods for a whole week. And on my way there, it's when I heard the news about this monster, Gosnell. Kermit Gosnell. Look it up. And what he had done and had been doing for almost 40 years. Never convicted. Well, he was not the only one. And for how many years have been doing that? Well, we fast forward some time, and then a group, I forget the name of this group that does these behind the cameras investigations, found out that, of course, yep, I got a call coming in here, folks. I'll be right back. All right, so we're back, and so this Kermit Gosnell murdering that many people, I thought to myself, this has got to be the biggest news ever. Crickets, folks. I was getting home, and I wasn't even active on social media at the time. I went into my social media platform on Facebook at the time and began to post and let people know what was happening, right? I found an article from England. That's the only place I found one. It was a picture and a story about the trial. They had a whole area full or empty with the seats for the press. Probably a good 30 seats, all empty except for one reporter. Amazing. They were expecting a lot of coverage. That's why I had so many seats available for the press. Nobody showed up. I kept searching online, nothing. Stories, nowhere. Clicking the channels on cable, clicking the channels on the air, nothing. I couldn't believe it. So I began to post. I found a picture on the story, shared it. Had somebody within the family saying, "I don't want to hear about this on my timeline. Get that out of my timeline," was the one complaint that I heard. I went to the churches in my area, Bible study groups, midweek meetings at different churches in the West Orlando area. And I started telling people about what was happening. Crickets, folks. A lot of them were looking at me like I wasn't even there. Like it was going in one ear out the other. And I kept wondering, and I couldn't sleep, folks. I just could not sleep. For weeks, I kept wondering, dear God, Jesus, please let me convey this message. I was dormant myself, folks, for years. I knew I was against it, but I hadn't done anything about it. Here now, I had real confirmation. The man was found guilty of something that I knew was happening. They were murdering babies, not just in the womb, but outside of the womb. They were selling baby parts, folks. When that started coming out, well, a few years later, I was like, wow. And so was the rest of the world. Well, guess what? They, this Houses of Death, aka Planned Parenthood, sue the people, I guess, and they had to remove some of those videos that they had posted. Did you think any of these videos were shown by the fake news? No. None of the commentary. Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was. So here you keep talking about it, and this one I kept digging, and I found our then president Obama giving a speech as a senator, as a state senator in Illinois. There was a recording on YouTube of him talking about babies that are born after a failed abortion. Basically what I mean is a failed abortion where they give you the pill, where they give you all of the things, and they do every attempt on a late-term abortion to murder that baby, but the baby lives anyway. Okay? And the bill wanted to allow people, get this, to murder that baby after it's born alive, or allow it to die. I couldn't believe myself. I couldn't believe that they were talking about this. But it gets better, because West Virginia, is it, or Virginia? Governor at the time, a doctor, and I can't recall his name right now because I'm driving. I can't look that up specifically. There's an interview of him on the radio. Video's posted. I have it posted somewhere. It was on YouTube, unless they yanked it off, where he is stating that he is in favor of the murder of babies, again, abortion, late term, and that if the baby is born alive, that they, quote, would, and I'm paraphrasing here, make the baby as comfortable as possible and leave the baby on a table to starve and die or starve them to death. But make them comfortable. How morbid, huh? So we're talking about any issues? You think our nation is in trouble when we allow this kind of treatment of the most helpless, the least capable, and the least able? Then, running over somebody on the road and a hit and run, or, Black Lives Matter group setting fire to buildings and police stations and courthouses, that's nothing. Terrorism, which is what it is. Black Lives Matter is the terrorist group. But when they make a terrorist group organization, a nonprofit who collects millions and millions of dollars from corporations, folks, corporations that you and I may own stock in through our 401k plan, or or buy their products, etc., or their services. Wake up, folks. Wake up. Yeah, these are corporations that are now endorsing riots. We're talking about big time riots that happened for months and months and almost a year. Washington State and Seattle, that was a daily occurrence. Minnesota, they tore up a whole blocks and blocks of cities in Minneapolis. There was an excuse. It was free for all because of some morons and some idiots. You talk about the fact that it's true. What has killed more and done more harm to the black community than abortion? Nothing close. There's nothing even close that comes close to the extermination of a race in plain sight, in plain view, by its own people, endorsed by their own leaders, by their own fake preachers and reverends, and their own reverend, you got Jesse Jackson, you got, who's that other reverend now, who actually has a television show, has never paid his taxes, violator of the law, federal law, who encourages the murder of babies. And God knows how many other black preachers out there are encouraging the murder of babies. And how many other churches, black, white, Latino, that keep their mouth shut. I remember attending churches again after I heard about the Gosnell thing, which was not being shown on television, so I decided to go where? To the people that should know and should be talking about it. The churches. Well, I went to a church that I've known very close to us, and during a midweek meeting. At the time, they had a group where the guys were in one room and the ladies were in the other room. And so I decided to ask and tell him about what was happening with the Kermit Gosnell murder of children, of babies outside of the womb, on the abortion issue. Because the fact is that I had been born again, that I was baptized in Jesus' name, and yet I had not been hearing from the pulpit for years. I had not heard any of the pastors talk specifically about how wrong the murder of babies is, how wrong abortion is, how wrong and how evil and what a cowardly, despicable sin it is to commit from the pulpit, folks. And guess what? One of the comment was, well, you start talking about that, you will lose half of your congregation. And I'm thinking to myself, so be it. So be it. The problem is that many of these flimsy little churches or big mega churches don't have the backbone because they're afraid of losing members in the congregation for standing up against and telling the Bible complete. You can't just pre-select what you're going to preach about, folks. The Word of God has to stand on its own, and people will be offended. But if you start holding up your sermons and you start preaching without allowing the full word to come through, then you're a fraud. Sorry, you're a fraud. And so anyway, I want to pray for all the churches and all of those people right now in Jesus' name. I pray that they wake up, dear God, that if they haven't or are not discussing it or having a guest or someone that can talk about the sin of baby murder, which I call baby murder, abortion, from their pulpit, that they need to do so as soon as possible. I'm wholeheartedly a believer that until this is abolished, like they abolished slavery, okay, and they need to pass a law, federal law now. We need to push for a law that protects the child in the womb. Okay? It protects the mother. Abortions kill mothers. They don't tell you about that. Abortions maim mothers, not just psychologically, but physically. Much more than they tell you. 321-837-9974. Leave your comment. Leave your opinion. Text or call. Check out our websites at cybervideotv.com, healingtv.org, lawtelevision.org. Folks, we're linked into YouTube. Well, they'll have us, I guess. Facebook, Twitter. Those are the main street. And Orbiz.net. ORBYS.net. Now, that's a censorship-free social media platform, which I like to just let you know that's an option. Not nearly as big as what you're used to and accustomed to, but that's okay. All right? Just need to have those options and start looking for options out there. Don't put all your chips in one basket or place, like they say. I want to encourage you to do your homework, especially here on these pre-election program that I'm giving you. I'm going to have one where I'll go through some of the flyers that I get. I do that every election time. We have primaries heading here in a few weeks in the state of Florida. Wake up. Okay? Make sure you wake up. How do you spell misinformation? D-E-M-I-N-G-S. Misinformation. That's how you spell disinformation. Demings. Okay? So kick those out of Central Florida. It's about time for us to get some decency in our county, in Orange County. Fire Jerry Demings, fire Val Demings. They'll keep coming out, folks. They will never stop. If you look at their campaign coffers, too large, too big, they'll pop up somewhere. They'll wait for a district. If they lose right now, they'll pop up somewhere, sometime. They'll never end and stop. But what I do pray is that they see the light, that they turn away from this evil path, from the promotion of deviant behavior and lifestyles, which they are promoting in our schools too. And the promotion of the murder of babies, that they turn away from that, and that they become, they fear the Lord. They become persons that fear and love Jesus to such a point to they turn away from their ways. Okay, that's what I pray the most, for every one of them to do the right thing, that they might be able to look at themselves in the mirror and make themselves, that I would say they're proud of them repenting and changing their ways, folks. And I pray the same for our current president, vice president, and any of those supporters of the Democratic National Committee. And many of the same hypocritical Republicans that are out there. Because there are so many of them that are two-faced liars, that they use the platform and they talk and they lie and they change. I want to pray for everyone and every single person that's listening to this. I encourage you to share it, to provide your opinion. And again, this is just my opinion, okay? I ask the Lord to enlighten me, to open my eyes, to allow me to be more tactful and understanding, both at home and my neighborhood, at my church, on this platform here. I've been online for some time now, folks. I don't make any money. I'm not in this. I'm not at it for the money, but I'm at it to just inform you. Look at it in a different way. Look at that. I mean, you go to UCF. I attended Valencia here good 10 years ago. I've been going about every decade, it seems like, and the transformation in that school was unbelievable. The professors were afraid of what the students would put on reviews, because now they were I mean, I got emails requesting reviews of each professor, and they were not allowed to do certain things. They could not provide their opinion on a lot of subjects, etc., which really is dumbfounding to me. They're on pins and needles. I talked to a couple of students, especially one from Venezuela that was attending UCF a few years ago, and he said that they were spreading so much socialism and Marxist ideology that he just couldn't understand it, and that he just kept himself quiet because he didn't want to get in trouble. But coming from Venezuela and fleeing the Chavez regime, he knows a few things about what is taking place and what this ideology does. And so they've been brainwashing our children, and I pray, dear God, that turned around. In Jesus' name. Thank you again for staying tuned, watching, sharing, liking, subscribing, and making your comments. And we'll see you next time. I don't know how long I've been on the air here. I'm just taping this on a trip. I'm moving a friend to North Carolina, so I figured I'd take the time and record it while it was fresh in my head. God bless you all. $750 billion being printed. Let's call it inflation reduction act. Unbelievable. Wow. Have a good night. Have a good day. God bless again. We'll see you back soon. This is yours truly, Johnny Q here, reporting. Pablo, the video guy, aka Johnny. Have a great day. Bye-bye.